The email arrived at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, just as I was settling into my office with my usual black coffee and reviewing the quarterly reports that had made our division the crown jewel of Henderson and Associates. The subject line was innocuous enough: meeting request, urgent. But something about the sterile tone and the sender, Marcus Henderson Jr., VP of Operations and the CEO's golden boy. According to YouTube analytics, 99.3% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Made my stomach clench. I'd been with Henderson and Associates for 8 years, climbing from junior account executive to senior director of client relations, building what everyone acknowledged was the most successful client portfolio in the company's 30-year history. 41 clients, ranging from mid-sized tech startups to Fortune 500 companies, all of whom trusted me implicitly. My retention rate was 97%. My revenue growth averaged 23% year over year, and my team of 12 was the envy of every other department. But Marcus Jr. had always seen me as a threat. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in Conference Room B, the small one, not the glass-walled space where important decisions were made. That should have been my first warning. Marcus Jr. sat across from me, his perfectly pressed suit and inherited confidence filling the cramped space. Beside him sat Linda from HR, her expression apologetic but resigned. "Sarah," Marcus Jr. began, not bothering with pleasantries, "we need to discuss some concerns about your performance and attitude." I almost laughed. My performance? Marcus, my division just posted its best quarter in company history. We're up 31% from last year. Numbers aren't everything, he said, leaning back in his chair with that smug expression I'd grown to despise. We've received complaints about your management style. Some team members feel you're difficult to work with. Which team members? I asked, though I already knew this was fabricated. My team would walk through fire for me because I'd fought for their raises, their promotions, their work-life balance when Marcus Jr. wanted to treat them like disposable assets. I can't reveal specific names, but the feedback has been consistent. Additionally, there are questions about your loyalty to the company's direction under new leadership. New leadership. That was rich. Marcus Jr. had been systematically positioning himself to take over from his father, pushing out anyone with the experience and respect that might challenge his authority. I'd watched him force out Tom Brennan from operations last year and Jennifer Walsh from marketing 6 months ago. Now it was my turn. "What exactly are you saying, Marcus?" Linda cleared her throat, sliding a folder across the table. "Sarah, we're going to have to let you go, effective immediately. Your access cards and company devices will need to be returned today." The words hit me like ice water. 8 years of 60-hour weeks, of canceled vacations to handle client emergencies, of building relationships that had generated millions in revenue for this company. And they were firing me in a windowless room with a termination letter that cited performance concerns and cultural misalignment. "This is insane," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "You can't fire me for performance issues when I'm objectively your highest performer. What's the real reason?" Marcus Jr.'s mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the petty vindictiveness beneath. "The real reason, Sarah, is that this company is evolving. We need team players, not prima donnas who think they're irreplaceable." Irreplaceable. The word echoed in my mind as security escorted me to my office to pack my personal items while my bewildered team watched from their desks. Rebecca, my right-hand associate, looked like she might cry. James from the marketing liaison team shook his head in disbelief. These people had trusted me, followed my lead, believed in the vision we'd built together. As I packed my awards, my family photos, the small cactus my daughter had given me for my birthday, Marcus Jr. appeared in my doorway with that same self-satisfied smirk. "Oh, And Sarah? Don't even think about taking any client information with you. Everything belongs to Henderson and Associates, including the relationships you developed on company time. That's when I realized the true scope of his plan. He didn't just want me gone, he wanted to claim credit for everything I'd built. In his mind, those 41 clients weren't loyal to me. They were assets of the company that he could manage just as effectively. He actually believed that relationships I'd cultivated over years, built on trust and results, would seamlessly transfer to his leadership. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. The first 3 days after my termination were dark. I'd always defined myself by my work, by my success, by the respect I'd earned in an industry where women had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. My husband David tried to be supportive, reminding me that I had enough savings to take some time, maybe even start my own firm. But I wasn't ready to think about the future yet. I was too focused on the injustice of what had happened. On Thursday morning, my phone started ringing. Sarah? It's Michael Chen from Innovate Tech Solutions. I just heard what happened at Henderson and Associates. Are you kidding me? They fired you? Michael was one of my first clients, a startup CEO I'd helped navigate 3 rounds of funding and a successful IPO. His company now generated $2.3 billion annually for Henderson and Associates. It's complicated, Michael, but yes. I'm no longer with the company. Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You single-handedly saved our product launch when their logistics partner fell through. Who's supposed to handle our account now? I believe Marcus Henderson Jr. will be taking over client relations. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then, the guy who tried to pitch us that ridiculous rebranding strategy last year, the one you had to diplomatically shut down before he cost us our entire customer base, that would be him. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Are you planning to start your own firm? I hadn't been, but something in Michael's tone made me pause. I'm considering my options. Because if you are, Innovate Tech would like to be your first client. By Friday afternoon, I'd received similar calls from 7 more clients. Word was spreading through the network I'd spent 8 years building. These weren't just business relationships. They were genuine connections based on mutual respect and proven results. I'd been in the trenches with these people, helping them navigate crises, celebrate successes, and build their businesses. Meanwhile, according to Rebecca, who was still fielding my calls because Marcus Jr. hadn't bothered to update the directory, chaos was erupting at Henderson and Associates. Clients were demanding meetings with me specifically, and when told I no longer worked there, they were asking pointed questions about who would be handling their accounts and whether their contracts allowed for immediate termination. That weekend, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer first. Janet, I need to understand my non-compete clause and what client information I can legally use. Janet Martinez had handled my contract negotiations when I'd been promoted to senior director. She knew the business, and more importantly, she knew Marcus Jr.'s reputation for cutting corners on legal details. Let me review your termination paperwork, she said after I'd explained the situation. You know, for someone whose father owns a company built on client relationships, Marcus Jr. has a surprisingly naive understanding of how those relationships actually work. What do you mean? Your non-compete is specifically tied to soliciting clients from Henderson and Associates, but it doesn't prevent you from accepting business from clients who approach you independently. And it certainly doesn't prevent you from using your own industry expertise and contacts to build a new business. So if clients call you and want to work with your new firm, and you're not actively poaching them from Henderson and Associates, that's just good business. Monday morning, I filed the paperwork to establish Chen Hartley Strategic Solutions. I chose the name carefully, Chen for Michael, who'd been my first supporter, and Hartley for my maiden name, representing the career I'd built on my own merit. By Wednesday, I had a business license, a small office lease, and 3 signed contracts. The calls kept coming. David Restrepo from Coastal Manufacturing, whose company I'd helped navigate a difficult merger. Sarah, I don't know what happened over there, but Marcus Jr. called me yesterday and suggested we optimize our strategic approach. I asked him what that meant, and he couldn't give me a straight answer. When can we meet? Lisa Park from Pacific Northwest Technologies. That boy doesn't know the first thing about our industry. He actually suggested we pivot to blockchain integration. Blockchain, for a lumber technology company. How soon can you take over our account? Within 2 weeks, I had 18 former clients under contract. Not because I'd solicited them, but because they'd actively sought me out. The business relationships I'd thought belonged to Henderson and Associates had actually belonged to me all along. But Marcus Jr. wasn't going to let this slide quietly. The cease and desist letter arrived by courier on a Thursday morning, accompanied by a threat of legal action for client theft and breach of contract. According to the letter, I had maliciously and systematically undermined Henderson and Associates by soliciting and stealing clients through fraudulent means. I called Janet immediately. "This is actually hilarious," she said after reviewing the documents. "He's accusing you of client theft, but his own termination paperwork states that you were fired for performance issues. You can't steal clients from a company that just told the world you were incompetent at managing client relationships. What do you recommend?" We respond professionally, provide documentation that all clients approached you independently, and then we file a counterclaim for wrongful termination and defamation. His letter essentially admits that you were fired not for performance, but to prevent client departures. That's retaliation, and it's illegal. The legal maneuvering escalated quickly. Marcus Jr., backed by his father's legal team, filed an injunction to prevent me from working with any former Henderson and Associates clients. I filed a countersuit for wrongful termination, claiming that I'd been fired specifically to prevent legitimate competition. But the real battle was happening in the court of public opinion. The marketing and PR industry in our city was smaller than people realized. Everyone knew everyone, and word of the conflict spread like wildfire. The story was too good not to tell. The CEO's entitled son fires the company's top performer, only to watch helplessly as the clients follow her out the door. Marcus Jr. made it worse by going on the offensive publicly. He gave an interview to the local business journal, claiming that I'd been disloyal and had manipulated client relationships for personal gain. He painted himself as the victim, a young executive trying to modernize his father's company while dealing with toxic elements from the old guard. The interview backfired spectacularly. Within 24 hours, 3 clients had publicly defended me on LinkedIn. Michael Chen wrote a detailed post about how I'd personally saved his company during the supply chain crisis of 2019, working 18-hour days to find alternative vendors when Henderson and Associates' preferred partners failed. Lisa Park shared the story of how I'd flown to Portland on Christmas Eve to handle a crisis that could have cost her company millions, while Marcus Jr. had been unreachable on his ski vacation. The narrative that emerged wasn't about client theft. It was about loyalty earned through years of exceptional service, contrasted with the arrogance of someone who thought relationships could be inherited along with a title. By the end of March, I had 32 former clients under contract. My small office had expanded to a full floor, and I'd hired 6 employees, including Rebecca, who'd quit Henderson and Associates to join my firm. But Marcus Jr. still had 9 clients who hadn't made the switch, and he was determined to prove he could manage major accounts without me. His strategy seemed to involve impressing clients with expensive presentations and cutting-edge proposals that showed little understanding of their actual needs. The breaking point came in April. Hartwell Industries was one of the accounts I was most disappointed to lose, not because of the revenue, though it was substantial, but because I genuinely enjoyed working with their CEO, Patricia Hartwell. She was a shrewd businesswoman who'd built her manufacturing company from the ground up, and I respected her decision to stay with Henderson and Associates out of loyalty to the senior Mr. Henderson, who'd been her advisor for over a decade. But Marcus Jr. saw Hartwell Industries as his chance to prove he could not only retain major clients, but grow their business beyond what I'd achieved. His presentation, according to sources inside Henderson and Associates, was a disaster. He proposed a complete rebranding strategy that would have alienated Hartwell's core customer base, suggested they move manufacturing overseas to cut costs, ignoring the fact that their Made in America branding was central to their market positioning, and recommended a social media campaign targeting millennials for products primarily purchased by baby boomers and Gen X. Patricia Hartwell listened politely, thanked him for his time, and terminated her contract the following day. Her call came that afternoon. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. I thought loyalty meant staying with Henderson and Associates, but I realize now that my real loyalty should have been to competence. That boy just cost me 3 hours I'll never get back listening to the worst business advice I've heard in 30 years. When can we meet?" With Patricia Hartwell's signature, I had 33 clients, and Marcus Jr. was down to 8. The final domino fell in May, and it was entirely of Marcus Jr.'s own making. Desperate to show growth and retain his remaining clients, he began making increasingly aggressive promises he couldn't keep. He guaranteed results that were unrealistic, committed to timelines that were impossible, and most damaging of all, he began offering unauthorized discounts to prevent further client defections. When Mercantile Solutions, one of his remaining 8 clients, called to clarify why their rates had suddenly dropped by 30%, and whether this was a permanent change or a limited-time offer, the truth came out. Marcus Jr. had been authorizing discount after discount without his father's knowledge, desperately trying to make his shrinking client list appear more stable than it actually was. The confrontation between Marcus Jr. and his father happened in the senior Henderson's office on a Tuesday morning, but the entire company heard it through the supposedly soundproof walls. According to Rebecca, who heard the story from her former colleagues, it was brutal. The senior Henderson had built his company on integrity and sustainable relationships, and discovering that his son had been undermining both in a desperate attempt to salvage his reputation was devastating. Marcus Jr. was quietly reassigned to special projects, corporate speak for being removed from any position where he could cause further damage. 3 days later, the senior Henderson himself called me. "Sarah, this is Bill Henderson. I wonder if we might have lunch to discuss something that could be mutually beneficial." We met at Morton's, the same restaurant where he'd taken me to celebrate my promotion to senior director 3 years earlier. Bill Henderson looked older than I remembered, the stress of the past months evident in the lines around his eyes. "I'm going to get straight to the point," he said after we'd ordered. "My son made a terrible mistake firing you, and an even worse mistake in how he handled the aftermath. I've lost my best director, 33 clients, and probably 2 years off my life from the stress of cleaning up this mess." I remained silent, letting him continue. "I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending this is anything other than what it is. I need you back. The company needs you back. And I'm prepared to make you an offer that reflects that reality." The offer was substantial. Senior Vice President of Client Relations, a 40% salary increase, equity in the company, and most importantly, complete autonomy over the Client Relations division with a guarantee that Marcus Jr. would have no involvement in my department. It was everything I would have wanted a year ago, but I wasn't the same person who'd been fired in Conference Room B 6 months earlier. "Bill, I appreciate the offer, and I'm genuinely grateful that you recognize the value I brought to Henderson and Associates. But I'm not interested in coming back." His face fell. "Is it the money? Because we can negotiate?" "It's not about money. I've learned something these past 6 months that I never understood before. Those clients didn't follow me because they were loyal to me personally. They followed me because they trusted my judgment, my integrity, and my commitment to their success. That's not something that belongs to any company. It's something I've earned, and it's something I can build on. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Your son was right about one thing, Bill. I am irreplaceable, but not because I'm some special talent. I'm irreplaceable because I spent 8 years proving to 41 different business leaders that I would prioritize their success over my own convenience. You can't hire that kind of trust. You can't inherit it. You can only earn it. 3 months later, I signed my 41st client, a mid-size consulting firm whose CEO had heard about my story through industry connections. It was poetic justice that my new firm now had the same number of clients I'd managed at Henderson and Associates. But with one crucial difference. These clients had chosen to work with me, not because they were assigned to me, but because they believed in my ability to deliver results. Marcus Jr., last I heard, was still working on special projects at his father's company, though rumor has it he's been interviewing for positions at other firms. I occasionally see his name in industry publications, usually attached to think pieces about modernizing client relations or leveraging technology to enhance customer engagement. He's learned the buzzwords, but I doubt he's learned the lesson. The lesson isn't about revenge, though I won't deny the satisfaction of watching someone face the consequences of their own arrogance. The real lesson is about the difference between authority and respect, between position and leadership, between what you can inherit and what you must earn. I built Chen Hartley Strategic Solutions not to get back at Marcus Jr., but to prove to myself that what I'd accomplished at Henderson and Associates wasn't a fluke or a gift from a generous employer. It was the result of years of hard work, genuine care for client success, and a commitment to excellence that transcended any single company or job title. Looking back, getting fired was the best thing that could have happened to my career. It forced me to discover that my greatest asset wasn't my job. It was the trust I'd earned from people who respected my work. And unlike a job, that trust belonged entirely to me. Today, Chen Hartley Strategic Solutions has grown beyond those original 41 clients. We've expanded into 3 cities, employ 28 people, and last year we were recognized as one of the fastest-growing firms in our industry. Not because we stole clients from our competitors, but because we earned them. And Marcus Jr.? He learned that you can inherit a company, but you can't inherit the respect of the people who make that company successful. That's something you have to earn, one relationship at a time, one successful project at a time, one moment of integrity at a time. Some lessons are more expensive than others. His cost him 41 clients, and the leadership role he'd assumed was his birthright. Mine taught me that the career I'd spent 8 years building wasn't tied to any company. It was something I carried with me, something that belonged to me, and something no one could ever take away. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't getting even. It's discovering that you never needed them in the first place.